Crespo is one of the hosts for Let's Talk Football, the Round Table. And Let's Talk Football Ladies.
Hey everybody, and Let's Talk Football. Delilah Crespo here with another episode of Diversity with Delilah. And today I'm going to talk to you about Gale Sayers, halfback for Chicago Bears. Now, before there was Walter Payton, aka Sweetness, we had Gale Sayers, and he is a Hall of Famer. I'll get to that in a moment. Many people who love like sports movies or movies based on sports, figures, probably know Gale from the movie Brian's Song, based on his teammate at the time, Brian Piccolo. And, that story kind of went around Gale's own autobiography, where he writes about his experience of caring for his friend when he was battling cancer. Brian did pass away of cancer in 1970. And so I just bring that up because sometimes that's how people know Gale. They know him through that movie, Brian's Song. If you haven't seen it, you should. It's fantastic. It was a TV movie, but really, really great. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Fantastic film. Anyway, so Gale was a halfback and return specialist for the NFL. He spent his career with the Chicago Bears from 1965 through 71. He was born in Wichita, Kansas, but raised in Omaha, Nebraska. He played at Omaha Central High School, where he started in football and track. He went on to play for the Jayhawks. So he went to the University of Kansas, where he was known as the Kansas Comet. His 3 seasons at Kansas was crazy. He compiled 4,020 all-purpose yards in 3 seasons. He was a consensus All-American in 1963 and 1964, so he got that twice. Then in 1965, he was drafted by Chicago Bears in the first round, 4th overall. He was also drafted that same year by the AFL, because this was before the merger between the NFL and AFL. He was drafted 5th by the Kansas City Chiefs. After discussing it with his wife, Sayers decided to go play for the Chicago Bears under the famous legendary coach George Halas. And so that's where he began his football career. His rookie year was record-setting. He scored an NFL record 22 touchdowns, which that record stands today for a rookie. 14 rushing, 6 receiving, and 1 each on a punt and kickoff returns. He gained 2,272 all-purpose yards, a record for an NFL rookie, with 1,370 of them coming from scrimmage. Sayers averaged 5.2 yards per rush and 17.5 yards per reception. His return averages were 14.9 yards per punt return and a league high 31.4 yards per kickoff return. This was his rookie year. So we're still talking about his rookie year. Then on October 17th against the Minnesota Vikings, again, this is his rookie year, Sayers carried 13 times for 64 yards and a touchdown, caught 4 passes for 63 yards and 2 touchdowns, and had a 98-yard kickoff return touchdown in the 45-37 Bears victory. He was the last NFL player who scored a rushing, receiving, and kickoff return touchdown until Tyreek Hill did that in 2016. Think how long that record stood. So that is Gale Sayers. He was that guy. So he was well known. I know we don't really talk about him often, which is fine. Like, I love Barry Sanders. I'm a huge fan of, obviously, Sweetness, but I feel like Gale gets lost in the wind, even though he set all crazy records and he had a short season because of injuries. So because of his incredible rookie year, no surprise, he was NFL Rookie of the Year in 1965. One of his first rushing titles was in 1966, which was his second, season, sophomore. He led the league in rushing with 1,231 yards, averaging 5.4 yards per carry, with 8 touchdowns, and becoming the first Chicago Bears halfback to win the rushing title since 1949. In 1968, he went down with a knee injury, but came back in 1969. He led the league in rushing once again with 1,032 yards. He averaged 4.4 yards per carry and was the only player to gain over 1,000 rushing yards that year. He won, unsurprising, Comeback Player of the Year in 1966. And so here are some of his other accolades. As I mentioned, 1969, NFL Comeback Player of the Year, NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, 1965, 5 times first team All-Pro, 1965 through 1969, 4 times to the Pro Bowl, 1965 through 67, then in 1969, 2 NFL rushing yards leaders in 66 and in 69, NFL scoring leader in 1965, won the George Halas Award in 1970, NFL 1960s All-Decade Team, NFL 50th Anniversary All-Time Team, NFL 75th Anniversary All-Time Team, made it into the NFL 100th Anniversary All-Time Team. Chicago Bears retired his number in 1940. 100 Greatest Bears of All Time. As I mentioned, he was an All-American 2 times in college, 3 times All Big 8. So he made that from 1962 through 1964 in his college years. The Kansas City Jayhawks retired his jersey, number 48. His total NFL career was 4,956 rushing yards, 5 rushing yard average, rushing touchdowns, 39 receptions, because he did, obviously, like often happens with halfbacks and running backs, they get moved around, 112 receptions, 1,307 receiving yards, 9 receiving touchdowns, return yards, 3,172 with 8 return touchdowns. He still has, right now, the NFL record for most touchdowns in a rookie season. That 22 still stands. Most all-purpose touchdowns in a single game, 6. He's tied with Ernie Neighbors and Alvin Kamara. So right now, again, 2 huge records. One of them is tied with Ernie Neighbors and Alvin Kamara. In 1977, he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. As I mentioned, the Jayhawks football team did retire his jersey. Also, in that same year, so the same year he was inducted into College Football Hall of Fame, he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And that is still, right now, the youngest inductee in its history. He was very young when he was inducted, only in his 30s. So again, right now, he still holds that record too in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. On October 31st, 1994, during a halftime Monday night game, the Bears retired his number 40 at Soldier Field, along with number 51, which was worn by a teammate linebacker, another Bears legend, Mr. Dick Butkus. And after suffering dementia for several years later in his life, Sayers passed away on September 23rd, 2020, at the age of 77. So again, legendary career, legendary halfback, gets lost in history because he did play in those, in the 1960s, the earlier years before the merger. But again, such an amazing career that he got inducted so young, and he still holds that record too. So that is Mr. Gale Sayers. So until next time, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Diversity with Delilah. I'll see you. Bye.
Yeah.